So as we look more at early childhood, this lecture, we're going to be looking at cognitive development, how children think and learn. So we will be going over some of the theories and theorists of cognition for ages 3 to 6. I'll talk a little bit about language development, and then I'll also look at early childhood education programs, preschools, and things like that. So we know that when children are 3, 4, 5, and 6, their cognitive ability is really growing. They are having a lot more ability to think and learn, more so than an infant who is just exploring their environment. And the great thing is as well is that their language ability is also changing very rapidly. And so they can include us in that thought process. They can tell us what they're thinking. They can explain what their wants and their needs are. But although we have these big jumps in cognition and language, they don't have the ability to use logic. They're really grounded in concrete things that they can hear, they can smell, they can think about, that they can explore. It's a lot of hands-on learning, so they can't think abstractly about large thoughts and concepts yet. So we're going to talk about Jean Piaget and his pre-operational stage, and we're also going to talk about a new theorist, Lev Vygotsky, and his zone of proximal development and scaffolding. I'll go into those as well. So Jean Piaget, he's our stage theorist. He's from Switzerland. So he had the ideas of how children learn throughout their lifespan. So we learned a couple weeks ago with infants and toddlers, we had trust versus mistrust. You have to have a really responsive caregiver in your life who meets your needs in order for you to learn how to have loving relationships throughout your whole life. Same with Jean Piaget's next stage was pre-operational thought, and this is about ages 2 to 7. This is a great time. They have object permanence, so when I do this, doesn't mean that I've gone away. They know that I'm still there if I'm behind my hands, or I'm in another room playing hide and go seek, or I'm behind a blanket. I still exist. I have not left, or I've not left the planet. They're beginning to use language to represent objects and ideas. They know words, block, jump, action words, adjectives, hot, dry, hot, cold, wet, dry, like ideas that they can explain to you and that they know opposites. They still continue to be really egocentric as well. So what I have right here is I have a little boy who's standing, and this is the object on the left-hand side at the very top. I have a little boy who's sitting at a table. There's a diorama. These are like pretend mountains that somebody has built, and then they have a doll. We're asking a child who's between the ages of 2 to 7 to explain not what he sees with the mountains, but what the doll sees, because the doll has small, medium, large, and the boy is looking from large, medium, small. We know that until about age 7, so at the end of this stage, at that time, at 7 and 8, they can tell us what the doll saw. At 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so early childhood, they cannot do that. They are egocentric. They only have the ability to look at things from their perspective. They only know about their emotions. So a child who's 3 or 4 only knows, I'm mad, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm happy. They don't seem to understand that other people have those emotions or that those emotions matter. They also don't know that people have other perspectives. They can be looking at something very concretely from the other side of a table. It looks completely different on that side, but they can't seem to put their mind in another person's body and see from their perspective. That means they only care about them. And brain development shows this. Children don't have the ability to think through other people's shoes, to walk a mile in their moccasins, that type of stuff. They're very young. They're completely concrete. They can't seem to understand this. Also at this age, they don't understand conservation of liquid. So in the bottom image, I have 2 cups. So these 2 cups are like little shot glasses. I would have the exact same liquid in one. But if I was to then pour liquid into a cup that's much taller, it's still the same amount as the one that is wider. They don't understand that. They don't understand that there's 2 equal things remain so, even if their appearance is altered. So same with like Play-Doh. I can have 2 balls of Play-Doh, but if I'm to make one long, like in a snake shape, they'll think that that one is longer than the actual ball, even though they saw me manipulate it. They only see things as their concrete experience, as their concrete appearance. They can't understand that even though the appearance is altered, that the material isn't altered as well. So you have the water in the cups. They see that they're exactly the same in 2 very in two identical cups, but when the appearance is altered by some of the water going in a different cup, they cannot understand that. This and that mountain one, so these two images over here show us that our children at this age, so 2 to 7, are very much grounded in reality, what they can see, what they can touch, what they can understand. They don't have the ability to think abstractly about things. Then we have Lev Vygotsky, and the interesting thing is Jean Piaget, who we were just talking about, and Lev Vygotsky were born in the same year, which is 1896. Lev Vygotsky was born in Russia, but he died in 1937. So he lived through the First World War in Russia. And then in the 1930s, as World War II was gearing up in Europe, he actually passed away. The interesting thing is that Piaget, Jean Piaget, our stage theorist that I just talked about, he lived until the 1980s. We actually have recordings of him on YouTube. If you wanted to, you could go on YouTube and you could look for Jean Piaget, and you'll see him talking about his theories. So his work was much more informed. Piaget, he lived for almost 100 years. He worked continuously through most of his life on issues regarding children. He lectured a lot. He was at university. So we have a lot of body of work from him. And as we have his theories, we're also seeing that brain development, our ability to do CAT scans and take pictures of the brain, really reinforces what Jean Piaget was saying about how children learn in all of these stages. First, trust versus mistrust. First we have sensory motor, and then our second one with Jean Piaget is pre-operational. Lev Vygotsky was also a theorist, but most of his work was done between 1925 and 1937. And then because he died so early of tuberculosis, a lot of that work either remains untranslated in Russia, it hasn't been released yet, or it's undeveloped. And that these are ideas that he was thinking of, but maybe he didn't have time to adequately research them. But we still use a lot of his work, especially in education or working with children and helping their cognition. So helping them learn. How do you help a child learn? He had this idea of zone of proximal development. So in the image, I have a child. And this is all the things in this box right here that he can do on his own. He's learned how to jump. He's learned how to run. Then there are the things that he can do with a little bit of help. And then there are things that no matter what, no matter how much support you get, a child isn't going to be able to do that. So a 4-year-old who's just jumping off of a container onto the floor cannot possibly ride a bike without training them. That's just impossible for them to do. What we want to help them do is this bit in the middle. They need a little bit of support, coaching, things like that, maybe to play hopscotch. So they're going to need support in how to raise one leg, how to jump, how to draw shapes on the ground. Those are the types of things that we can help them when we support them. We want to coach them so that they can get to that next level. And Vygotsky called that the zone of proximal development. So it's not what the child can already do, and it's not what's impossible. It's this sweet middle ground of what can you do with a little bit of help and support from an adult or an older peer. He also had this idea of scaffolding. So what it is ways to guide development and cognition, especially in a classroom. Ways that we can help children, or we can scaffold. So think about like scaffolding on a building. If you're redoing a building, you build these scaffolds so that the workers can go up and they can clean the facade, or they can change the concrete, or they can fix the windows or wash the windows, whatever. It's a way for you to start going up and up and up the building. Same thing, it's for a child to go up and up their development with scaffolding help from older peers or teachers or parents. Somebody in their life who already knows how to do it, who can help and support them to do the next thing. So we want to motivate them. So typically how we motivate them is we can break down the task into more manageable steps. So if this requires a lot of different steps in order to do it, then we're going to give them support to do that. Then they need to go over and get the scissors, then they need to come back, then they need to get the paper, then they need to cut triangles out, then they need to go and they need to get paste, they need to paste on the paper, they need to put the triangles on the paper. So to do an art activity, maybe in a classroom or with a parent, helping them break it down into manageable steps. If you were just to give a 3, 4, 5-year-old a bunch of scissors, a bunch of paper and glue, they might need support in order to finish the craft that you have laid out for them. So that's how we keep, and then we also want to provide direction to keep them focused. We reduce factors that cause frustration. My own daughter in kindergarten, sometimes the classroom gets really, really loud for her, and so she goes over into a more quiet area, or she can even go outside and sit right outside of the door. When she's working on her iPad, she does little drawings and stuff like that. and it gets she gets really frustrated when the classroom gets too loud. And so her teacher in kindergarten is supporting her by finding her an environment that's a little bit less loud and rowdy, so she can focus and she can concentrate on the task that she has. And then with everybody modeling and defining the expectations of the activity. Since I've come up through, I started as a preschool teacher, and now I teach at Palomar about that, and I also work with children with special needs. I've been doing this for almost 20 years. So I have learned from this that I always try to define the expectations of the activity. I try to be really upfront with you about what the course requirements are. How do you write a research paper? How am I going to grade the research paper? Please give me a rough draft so that I can give you feedback. I'm trying to scaffold you your way through this class so that at the end you have a 5-page paper that you've written about a subject relevant to child development, and I have supported and scaffolded you along that way. So language development, also great at this age. So we talked about cognition and how children are learning through that Jean Piaget's pre-operational stage. How can we support children in learning through Lev Vygotsky's work on the zones of proximal development and scaffolding in the classroom and at home, helping them kind of learn. Language development goes with this as well, is that they can really understand what I'm saying. So when you're talking to a 1 or 2-year-old, it's help, no, mine, share. 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, they have thousands of words. They have so many words. They understand a lot of words. So we can talk to them and they understand what we're saying. And so we can give them more directions and they'll understand it and they can comply with what we're asking them, hopefully. So their sentence length and their ability to communicate with us is getting much longer. So they have 4, 5, 6-word sentences. Their vocabulary becomes more elaborate. They have adjectives, adverbs, pronouns. I like the beautiful tree. The flowers are blooming on it, you know, that type of stuff. They have a little bit more that they can tell us, whereas a 2-year-old would be like, tree, big, tree, green, you know, something like that. Now they can tell us more about it. And then syntax and grammar. So syntax is how kind of sentences are structured, and grammar is becoming more adult-like. It's still going to be wrong. I mean, they're in early childhood, so they'll say something like, Mama, I did it. Obviously, that is the wrong tense for that. Mama, I did it is correct. But we wouldn't say, oh, that's wrong, honey. Your verb tense is wrong. You just say, wow, honey, you did it. So we'll model to them our grammar and our syntax, and by modeling it and them hearing it correctly, they'll eventually be able to imitate, because children learn language development by hearing language, being exposed to language, being read to, and then imitating what they are hearing and seeing in their world. They also have some pragmatics. So pragmatics is social speech. So it's the ability to use language. So they're developing, they have vocabulary, they have syntax, but if you can't use it in a social sense, communication loses a lot of its meaning. So we want to communicate and we want to get what we want. Especially at this age, they're very manipulative. They want to be able to manipulate you in order to get candy or cookies or longer on their iPads, stuff like that. So children at 5, 6, and 7, you'll learn that they're a lot more polite. They've learned if they say please or may I or the time of day. Like my children have really learned that in the morning, I'm a lot fresher. I'm definitely a morning person. And if they are polite in the morning, they're more likely to get something out of me. Whereas that witching hour before everybody goes to bed and I'm rushing around trying to get everybody through the bath, you know, that is not the time to be asking mommy for an extra, you know, something that they want. So they learned to use that. They learned to manipulate by using speech. And this is great. And when I say manipulate, I don't mean that in a negative sense. We all manipulate each other. It's a necessary skill. It's kind of how we get things from other people. And that's why play is important, is you learn how to negotiate and work with other people. So through play and through language, they are using pragmatics or social speech in order to kind of get what they want out of somebody. So expressive language, once again, receptive language is what we hear and understand and process, being able to follow instructions, things like that. Expressive language is our ability to speak, to talk, to use language. So these are some general milestones that we might have for our early childhood. So 3-year-olds, they're using plurals, trees, mooses. That's what my daughter, I think it's only moose, but she understands that plurals is typically saying an S at the end, so she says mooses. Pronouns, I did it, you did it, she did it. Prepositions as well. And now they're going to be able to use W questions, so what, when, where, why. They'll ask those questions in order to get information from us. Why did he do that? Why did you do it? Why is the sky blue and the grass is green? Where does the moon go during the day? Why do we have to go to school? It's really early, I want to stay home. That type of stuff. And they're using 3 and 4 sentences. So this is our early 3-year-olds. So this is the beginning of that early childhood. Is they're just entering preschool, they're 3 years old. They're able to do so much sophisticated things with their language that's supporting their cognitive ability and their ability to think and learn. Now, 4-year-olds, they're starting to learn past tense. You'll hear a lot of I did it, that type of stuff. So we're modeling the correct ones. Now we have 5 to 6 word sentences communicating about things in their environment. They're describing something. They can tell a story. If they went to the zoo, they can tell you what they saw at the zoo. I saw a bunch of penguins and they were swimming in the water. Yesterday, I went to the store and I got some mangoes and papayas, something like that. They should be mostly intelligible as well. So around 4 and 5 years old, you should be hearing about 75 to 85% of what you're hearing from them you can understand. Sometimes you'll have to ask and be like, what was that again? Or they might totally mispronounce a new vocabulary word that they have, but you can mostly get the gist of a story that they're trying to tell you. If you're having a really hard time understanding, they might need to go to speech therapy. They'll have an articulation issue. So they know all these words, it's just coming out wrong. Like their R's or their S's or something like that are not where they need to be. Like my sister, her name's Rachel, but she needed to go to speech therapy when she was in 1st grade because she said Rachel. My name's Rachel. So if you're hearing a lot of those mispronunciations, taking them to a pediatrician so that we can figure out if they need speech therapy or not. 5 years old, carry on a conversation with their grandparent, their neighbor, their best friend. They are talking with a variety of people and they can carry on a back and forth conversation. Somebody asks them questions, they can respond to it. They often call people or objects by their relationship to others. So, and that's typically around themselves. So you're my mommy, that's my friend Bobby's mommy, that's Mrs. Smith. They're not saying Mrs. Smith. They don't understand those kind of social conventions yet. They just know about their relationship. Oh, Bobby's my best friend, and that's my best friend Bobby's mommy. That's how they kind of define their relationships with other people as through themselves. And then they also know more sophisticated words, and they can define them. So before this, a 3-year-old knew what a spoon and a cat was, but they couldn't tell you what the difference is. Now, if you ask them, what's a spoon? They'll be like, oh, if you go in the kitchen and you open the drawer, you can take out this thing, and it's kind of round, and you use it to scoop up soup and cereal. And then a cat, how is a cat different from a dog? Those are the types of things that they can communicate with 10, 8, 9-word sentences. So I want to jump into early childhood education because around 3 years old, some children are entering into preschools or nursery schools or something like that. So a question that I often get asked by people is, what kind of school should I be looking for? What kind of preschool should my child be going to? What kind of nursery school, church school, whatever? I don't really care about that. That's a personal decision that you have. If you want to do Montessori, if you want to have a school within a elementary school, all those types of things, that's a personal family choice. What I'm concerned about is that it's developmentally appropriate and it follows state licensing requirements. So developmentally appropriate means that they have classrooms for 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, they might even be mixed ages, but they expect children to act in a certain way. So you expect an infant to roll around on the floor, to cry, to put things in their mouth, and then we're going to treat an infant really different than a 3-year-old. A 3-year-old is expected to still kind of have issues with learning how to share and to trade with each other. We're going to support children as they learn those play skills. We aren't going to expect that a 3-year-old acts like an 8-year-old. Those are completely different age groups. They act really differently and they need different kind of supports in the classroom. So when we're looking at something, we are looking for a program that understands what these children are about, and it's going to treat a 3-year-old like a 3-year-old. And then licensing requirements. So one of the classes that I teach here at Palomar is a 150 and a 155. It's administration. If you want to be a preschool director or a daycare provider, something like that, you have to take these classes with me. And we go very much into state licensing requirements. We talk about what kind of education teachers have, what your classrooms need to look like, how many children can be in a classroom. Those types of things are really important. And each program, it should have a license through the state. It should be well advertised. If you get a pamphlet from them, it should say licensing number 1922553Z or something like that. And that tells us that it has a licensing. Every year somebody comes out, they make inspections of the program and they make sure that it's okay. And if there was ever an issue that a parent had, they could always call the licensing board and they would come out and do a visit as well. This is to make sure that these programs are very healthy and they're very safe for children. We make sure that they have these base level requirements to make sure that children are being well taken care of. So if a program is developmentally appropriate and it follows state licensing, you have a pretty good idea that it's going to be a good program for your child. The next step, is it a good fit for you and your child? And you do that by asking questions. So not every program that's healthy and safe is going to be right for you or how your child learns. So you might want to choose a preschool by asking a lot of questions. So you're going to do a tour, or you're going to call them on the phone or email with them, and you ask questions like, what if my child was having a hard time leaving me and mom and dad? What's your discipline policy? So you don't want children to be spanked or anything like that. You want, self-control, redirection. If they're biting, then we take them to another part of the classroom and they work on something else. We minimize issues in the classroom so that children don't feel like they need to bite. Are parents encouraged to get involved? Can they come in whenever they want to? Are there parent groups? How do you work with me and my family? Can I talk to other parents at the school about their experiences? Can I observe at any time? How is information about my child's day shared? Like, what did they, especially for a young child, an infant or a toddler, what did they eat? When did they go to sleep? And even for a preschooler, what was their favorite part of the day? What, they had an accident. Oh, okay, where are the clothes? That type of stuff. So the second question that I get asked along with this is, you want to be a teacher. So some of you are taking this class because this is the first step in your journey towards either elementary school education or early childhood education. The best thing and the most important thing is that if you are on this path and you are at Palomar, is that you need to go to educational counseling. You either need to talk to a counselor about how to transfer or how to go to UCSD, to go to Cal State, something like that. And you also need to talk to our child development department. So we have full-time people in our child development department. We have Diane Studinka, Jenny Ferrero, and Dr. Laurel Anderson. They are more than happy to help you, and that is a big part of their job, and they love making sure that you can go and get a permit, and that's through the state of California, and that means more money. So if you are going to want to be a preschool teacher, you're going to want to work towards a permit. If you have a permit, you are much more competitively priced. You can work at better centers that have more money. So we want to help you make sure that you're taking the right classes, and we do that by counseling. So if you don't know what classes to take next and you know you want to go into an education, call the child development department. Our admin assistant is Kelly Donahue, and she will help you get an appointment with somebody full-time at Palomar who can help you decide what classes to take next. Don't just kind of willy-nilly throw classes in there and hope that it's going to get you towards your goal. And this goes for all of you. Like, maybe you don't ever want to work with children. You have them at home and that's why you took the class, or it's online, it fit your schedule. This advice goes for all of you. Go to a counselor or go to our child development department so that we can help you kind of make those goals. Just throwing classes in there, hoping that it works, is the wrong way to do this. You're going to take classes that you don't need, or you're going to find yourself in 2 to 3 years with this hodgepodge of weird classes and you're not ready to transfer or get your AA. So you need to talk to a counselor, or if you want to go into early childhood education, talk with one of us at our child development department. So then public school teachers, that's why you want to get like educational counseling with us as well, is that you need to look at those general requirements for transferring, because you need to go and you need to get a teaching permit. So you're going to have a bachelor's degree. So if you're working towards that, you need counseling to make sure that you're ready to transfer to Cal State or San Diego State. And then for many of you are dependents, you're a Marine Corps, or you will be leaving the state, you're going back home, or you know that you're just generally going to be leaving. The best thing to do is, if you're in the Marines, is go to the Base Education Center. They're trained in kind of these issues and things like that as far as leaving the state. And then research the state that you're moving to. So Texas and Maine don't follow Common Core settings, so you wouldn't ever want to take a class on Common Core, which is how the Department of Education structures elementary school education right now. You would want to, learn about other types of education. So knowing if you know where you're going to be moving, contacting community and colleges in that state, in Florida or Wisconsin or something like that, and asking them questions about your next steps will give you a general idea of how requirements might change from state to state. So I do want to talk a little bit about pre-K, TK, and kindergarten. So this is a change within California. I'm sorry, go back. So pre-K is pre-kindergarten. It's 4-ish, 4 and 5 years old, and if they don't qualify for TK, which is transitional kindergarten. So pre-K is like preschools and pre-kindergartners, where 3, 4s, and 5-year-olds will be going as far as early education before they go into the public school. Public schools in California now have TK, or transitional kindergarten. It's free kindergarten programs in a school district for children born between September and December who would otherwise miss out on kindergarten. So because children all need to be 5 by September 1st now, they have this TK program. So my twins did it. Their birthday is September 18th. That's when they turned 5. They would have had to wait an entire year to go to kindergarten. So instead, I got them into a TK, transitional kindergarten program, at our local public school, 4 hours a day. It was free to us, and it was basically like pre-K within the school district, and it got them ready for kindergarten this year. Not all schools have them. Your neighborhood school might. You would have to take your child in different parts of Oceanside School District or Vista School District, and there's typically only 6 or 7 classrooms per school district. So this is not a wide range program. It doesn't meet the needs of all children in California, but it does meet the needs of those children who are born in September, October, November, or December, who would otherwise miss out on kindergarten. So that's why they have this program. It's fantastic. My daughters did it. But then once everybody is, if you're 5 before September 1st, then you go into kindergarten. They have full day, they have part day, depending on your site, depending on your school. Here in California, we follow Common Core Standards, which is a Department of Education way that children are learning how to learn now. So instead of going towards a test or something like that, we're looking at real life skills and being able to use the information that they're taught in school and being able to kind of apply that to real life situations. But this image on the left is what we need. We want children to generally be able to know as they are entering kindergarten. So 5 and 6 years old, so early childhood, what should they generally be able to do in order to go to kindergarten? You should be able to write your first name. It doesn't look pretty, but they should be able to write, you know, my name, Jolie, whatever your name is. They should be able to say parts of their phone number. They should be able to write and say numbers up to 10. They should be able to count to 20. They can know uppercase and lowercase. They know what it looks like. Maybe they're still learning how to make those letters. That's something you'll learn. They should identify a lot of shapes. Once again, we talked about scissors last week. They should be able to use scissors to go around things like a circle or across a piece of paper. They should be able to identify colors. They should be able and enjoy rhyming. Nana, nana, banana, banana, fana, bobana. That type of stuff is really funny to a 4 and 5-year-old, which is great because rhyming is a really good literacy skill that helps children learn how to read. They should be able to identify position and direction concepts, turn left, turn right, go straight, come back, that type of stuff. But in conclusion, all of this is to say that play is the work of the child. So in early childhood, 3, 4, 5, and 6 years old, even as you're entering into kindergarten, you're playing. That is how you learn. That is how you be scaffold. That's how you learn about pre-operation, and you learn about things around your world is through play. And this is from Maria Montessori. She's somebody who influenced our educational system, and you've often heard of Montessori schools. This is the founder of it, Maria Montessori, and her big thing was play, and that's how children learn. That's what they should be doing. Instead of having a 9-to-5 job, children play throughout the day in order to learn about the world around them, learn about environments, learning about talking to people, learning through books about the world around them. So it's really important that children at this age are still really encouraged to have their cognition skills. So how do they think and learn happens through play with the people around them. All right, that's the end of this lecture, and I will see you guys next week.